Welcome to Happily Holistic. I'm Amy Lee Mercury, and I'm a medical intuitive with 20 years of experience. I've written 15 books on health and wellness. If you've had a medical intuitive session with me, you know that the thoughts and emotions within you, what has been passed down from your ancestors, and everything that surrounds you can impact your well-being. In this podcast, we touch on my favorite ways for you to improve your health and feel more joy. We dive deeply into everything health and wellness with a big dash of spirituality and a sprinkle of business. We spotlight the uplifting and the positive and share the secret ways top wellness authors and celebrities get inspired, stay healthy, and enjoy this beautiful life. I can't wait to get happily holistic with you today. Hello, and welcome to Happily Holistic. I'm so excited to have my friend Meg Monahan with me today. Yay. Yay. Meg is the author of Don't Hate, Meditate. She teaches meditation virtually and used to be all around the country. Now we're a little bit more virtual at the moment, but she works with Chopra Center and she has an amazing 21-day meditation program coming up that she's going to tell us about. So thank you so much for being here, Meg. I'm so glad you're here.
See you again.
I know. Meg and I got to meet in person in LA was it 2019?
2019, yep.
Yeah, in the summer. We were both on Good Morning La La Land on the same day. And it was, I think we both had a book come out at the time. I had the mood book out. You had Don't Hate, Meditate out. And we were just like instant soul sisters and friends. And here we are. And we get to chat. And I'm so glad.
It's nice to be in your energy again.
I know you too. I know. That's so true. So, Meg, tell us about your philosophy and what brought you into meditation and everything that you teach and share. Tell us how you got started.
Well, I didn't get started in meditation because everything was going fantastic and I was looking for ways to make things even more fantastic in my life. I did not wake up like this. None of what I teach about or kind of embody at this point were organically infused into my life. I, not unlike so many people, found meditation because of stress and because my body was physically starting to break down and send me some really like not so subtle through the form of, chronic autoimmune things and, things like having to get your gallbladder taken out at 22 are signs that things are going well. And so I had to sort of confront residue, emotional residue, emotional toxicity from my life, from growing up, things that I hadn't dealt with, things that I'm find my way through.
Yeah.
At a certain point, my body was like, oh, we're not fine.
Yes.
And my therapist at the time, while I was working in the music industry, recommended I learn how to meditate. And once I learned how to meditate with Deepak Chopra, once I learned about Ayurveda and this idea that my mind and my body were a part of my being, that I could have a different relationship with, that life wasn't about just treating symptoms, that it was about addressing overall imbalances that showed up as a lot of different things. Once I started accessing all of that wisdom, it became really hard to not want to share that with other people. I experienced, such a transformation 12 years ago now. This Thanksgiving is 12 years ago.
It's the anniversary coming up. We're taping in November. You guys are probably going to hear this after, but you'll know when we were taping.
Yeah. So it just became this access point to a sense of purpose to help people transform the way that I had.
Absolutely. And so you started teaching meditation, and how did kind of everything unfold leading up to writing your book too?
So I ended up, quitting my job in the music industry and wanting to quote unquote work in wellness. That was the only thing that I could come up with.
Yeah.
such little access to this world. So the only thing that I
Right.
knew that I wanted to help people heal and transform their lives. Looking back, it's such a lesson and example for me in how much can come when you detach from the outcome and when you
Mm,
to that underlying deepest desire, that in
mm,
Sanskrit we would call that the sankalpa, the desire that's whispered from your heart,
right.
not cognized by your mind.
Mm,
And so that sankalpa was, I want to help people transform. And I didn't know what that would look like, but I took, that leap of faith. Luckily, I was, free enough in my early 20s to more easily do that. There
yeah.
are things that tether us to jobs or to, places where we're living. But I was, able to do that and took a leap of faith and ended up getting a job working for Deepak and moving to San Diego for a few years and getting certified
Uh-huh.
through him and really doing my own a really intense immersive work on myself
Yeah.
so that I several years later could start teaching. And same thing with the book. I didn't manifest a book deal. I manifested an opportunity to share my work with more people, but really so
Yes.
working for Deepak, I didn't want to write a book. That wasn't the goal. There was that sense of detachment.
Hmm.
um,
Yes.
in that space. I think magic always has room to arrive and guide
It
us.
it absolutely does. It absolutely does. I love that. And I love the title of your book, Don't Hate, Meditate.
Meditate. 5 easy practices to get you through the hard shit and into the good.
Yes. I love that. I know as a writer, I've written quite a few books. A
Yeah.
lot of times the books start with a certain title and they evolve. Did you start with that title from the beginning?
No, I did not.
No.
My book proposal was called Spiritual Real Talk. Spiritual
Oh,
Talk. What was the subtitle? I think it was No Nonsense Meditations for the Everyday Soul Searcher.
I like that one too.
I loved that whole
I love
book.
that.
Um, my publisher really wanted meditation in the title. And so that ended up being why we changed the whole thing. But yeah, it's funny how those evolve.
They always do, and people always think we pick our covers and we pick our titles. And I mean, not that we're not involved depending upon the publisher, but
Yeah.
it's
I
not
was
just us.
well, I did get to pick the cover
Did
originally.
you?
Yeah, originally they pitched a very different vision for the cover. And it was
Yes.
lots of like there, most meditation books have a lot of like pastels and a lot of
Yeah.
especially pastel like green, and that's very
Yes.
usually what branding looks
Yes.
like. And I said to them, we have a curse word in the subtitle. Like
Right.
we need to have like kind of an
Something
edgy
stronger.
cover. And so they ended up, changing and giving me all these other options. My publisher was amazing with all of
I
the
love that. Who published your book? I forget.
10 speed. So under
10
Penguin.
Speed.
Yeah, they're
10
really
Speed.
amazing with the
We
design.
liked them.
Um, so I was pretty thankful because I know a lot of people don't get to pick any of that.
No, I've had some where I've had some input. Compassion Revolution, I had some input. Some I had no input.
Yeah.
Joyful Living, I wasn't a huge fan of the cover just because I thought it's very orangey, which interesting because I'm wearing that color today, it's a great color, but I didn't really, I don't know, it just had like it's nice, but it just has like a vase of flowers on it, and I was like thinking it should be like somebody like doing a pike like split on a trampoline in the air or something, like something a lot more joyful.
Yeah.
Or
It's
at least like
yeah.
bright yellow or so, it didn't go that way.
Yeah, we get, I think as creators, we have such an access
We
point
have a
to
vision.
the work and to what
We
we're
do.
putting out there and what of ourselves we're putting out there. And
Yes.
sometimes that's not in alignment with with what's being marketed or with what's selling
I
or
know.
the back conversations
Yes.
that happen.
Yes.
You
And
know?
I feel like the publishers are so tuned into that. It's not like I ever like would fight with them about it or anything. I want them to, pick what they think is going to sell the best because they have the information. But it
Yeah.
wasn't what I pictured. And when there's a French edition of Joyful Living, and when that came out, it's a woman with her arms outstretched in an open field. Now that looked more like Joyful Living to me.
Just the translation was a little bit off with the English version and the cover. That's all that it was.
That's all. But I think they were choosing it based upon their data, which was great. So it's interesting the way that happens. And I do love your cover. You guys can all check out Megan's book, Don't Hate, Meditate. And it's such a pretty cover. It's kind of got like different deep blues with white, right? Is that kind of how?
It looks a little bit like a sky or a little bit like the ocean, depending on how you see it. But yeah, it's very like abstract art.
I like it. I see what you mean too, how I think it's the right look as opposed to like just a pastel kind of thing. It's bold, but yet relaxing. It's perfect.
Because it's again, spiritual real talk is kind of always how I think about what I teach, how I teach, because it's very, the New Yorker in me definitely comes through when I'm teaching.
Yes.
The former, like recovering, cynical, jaded, that's my background. And so there's a very relatable, accessible element to it. So I didn't want it to look like, the monk off of the mountaintop that came down and like wrote this book for you. Right. So yeah.
No, I know you get to bring this perspective that I think is so relatable. And that's why everybody loves your book so much, and it's doing so amazingly. And your teachings, I'm just seeing all kinds of good things. On Meg's Instagram, it's Meg Monahan, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to spell that for everybody so they can follow you?
MEGMONAHAN.
Yes, there we go.
I'll spiritually slide into my DMs anytime.
Yes, talk to Meg.
And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to
yes.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Hey there, it's Amy Lee Mercree. People have been asking what to expect when you book a medical intuitive session with me. Whether you have had a medical intuitive session before or are completely new to the idea, working with a medical intuitive may be right for you if you are looking to uncover the root cause of one or more mild to moderate health concerns. Working with me is not designed to take the place of seeing an integrative doctor or your chosen health practitioner. The way a session begins is you get to share your questions and concerns. After that, I say an opening invocation, which is adapted from something shared with me by my late medicine teacher about 25 years ago. It invites your highest vibrational spirit guides to participate in the session. These may be ancestors, angelic guides, or other benevolent non-physical beings. After the invocation, I let you know which guides want to talk with you and what they have to say. We address your questions and concerns and find resolutions and answers. If there are health issues, we find the root causes of the issues. To learn more about my medical intuitive work, check out the Work With Me page on amyleemercree.com. Yes, and so I've noticed you have a lot of great things going down. I mean, you've been just doing so much and teaching so much, which is amazing.
Like this is like the Super Bowl for, healers and meditation
I know.
intuitives, right? This is what we've been like training for. This is the class that, I thought that I passed, that now I'm like, oh no, this is the final exam. Like, this is how I show up and where I get to
this is the midterms. We haven't even come close. We're not even too close to the final yet. I'll tell you. That's what we always think it's the final, right? And then it's like, no, that was not it.
Yeah. But that's what it feels like, like all of those muscles of trust and acceptance and all these muscles that you build when you personal work, meditation or healing, this is
so true.
This is the heavier weight, when your trainer's like, why don't we do another deadlift, but why don't you put another plate on the side? And you're like, I don't want to do that. The universe being like, let's add 10 more pounds.
You can. 10
more pounds. Let's add.
Yes.
That's how we grow, unfortunately.
I know.
Sadly, I think we're stronger.
Yes. And I think, we're recording in November 2020. So we're kind of like probably all getting to that point of like, we're getting tired. we're getting a little bit spiritually tired. Yeah, which brings us to, a really wonderful question, which is, from a perspective of self-care with your teaching, what tools would you share with everybody at this time to deal with everything that's going on? And this interview will probably air after the holidays, so we'll probably be right in 2021, and we may be feeling similarly, I don't know, but what would you like to share to help us cope and thrive?
So not surprisingly, my first thing is always meditation. I think meditation, it really is like the ultimate adaptogen herb, right? It's the thing that shows up wherever you need it, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual. It is the tool that for me allows me to question how I'm perceiving the world, how I'm injecting my own story. So much away from us living with a sense of peace, with a sense of thrive, is in the way. And so when you have the ability to question your thoughts, when you have the ability to even just notice what you're thinking and how you're thinking, all of a sudden you can then say, wow, like, look at that thought. That's a really unhelpful thought. That thought is not true. That thought does not need to have airtime or power over what I'm saying, what I'm doing. One of my favorite ideas is, I think it's an Emerson quote, that the ancestor to every action you've ever taken is a thought.
I love that.
Ancestor to anything you've ever
done true.
or said is a thought. And so having a better sense of agency over your mind, I think right now is a non-negotiable, whether it's
absolutely
that you notice when you're future pacing and like imagining the worst, whether you're bringing in limiting story, whatever it might be, it all starts with your mind. So for me, that's the biggest thing that we all need right now, because there is so much stimulus around us.
There's a lot right now. Yeah.
Tempting us to imagine the worst, tempting us to bring back in like the limit and the fear and the scarcity, restriction, and all of that stuff is so much easier to believe. It's so seductive, and it's so much easier to believe that there's not enough, that we're not enough, that it's not going to work out, that it's so much easier to do things. Those things don't require very much of us.
Right. As opposed to taking ownership of our thoughts, noticing, accepting ourselves, and then I think like replacing those with other ideas.
Yeah.
Abundance, and there being an ever abundant universe, and releasing fear and moving into love, and all of these things we can do.
That all takes, it's more weight sometimes, if that's we're used to kind of flexing.
Yeah, it takes effort.
It takes more effort. Yeah, it's easier to surrender to like, it's all terrible. It's not going to work out. There's not enough money. Those things are not enjoyable places to sit in, but it's a lot easier.
Sometimes we would call them like lower vibration thoughts, and it takes effort to raise our vibration. It absolutely does. And to consistently do it, even in the face of other, stimuli that might lower it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's not a like one and done thing, unfortunately.
Right.
So it's not just
for sure.
Not just doing that work and, getting yourself into that place in the morning and, riding, we have to keep filling the gas tank. We can't run on fumes. Yes. So it takes you constantly showing up for yourself and how you want to be, showing up in the world, and that's effort.
It absolutely does.
Totally worth it. Effort.
It absolutely does. And I know you have a meditation challenge that you're sharing. Would you tell us all about it?
Yeah. So I've been really called and really inspired to share what I do with more people. And especially here, I find myself wanting to give people a really tangible tool, not just like, you should be meditating and here's a way to do it. And even with a book, as you have to write out the ritual. You have to write out meditation, and it's not the same as holding space and letting someone just kind of fall into what you are.
Hear it.
So I came up with what I found really inspiring for myself, which is usually where I start with what I want to put out, which is ushering in this next year, this 2021, from a place of thrive. So from a place of expansion, and what do I want to create, and who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in my mind, in my body, in my spirit? And again, in really tangible ways, looking at your relationship with money, looking at your relationship with worth and manifestation. And so in a very relatable way, kind of diving into 21 days of meditation as we lead up to 2021. So if I could hold everyone's hand through the last 21 days of the year, I absolutely would. And unfortunately, I don't have access to everyone. So this is kind of my way of just being that reinforcement and that cheerleader. Not that I ever
love that.
But
but we all need that. Absolutely. That support and that encouragement. If people were to come upon this after 2020, will they still be able to use it in 2021 as well?
Yeah, it's not going to be calendars. I mean, it's days, but you can absolutely use it. So anytime. And I always say, as much as the calendar creates context for us, and as much as there's kind of that collective soul to things like New Year's and certain holidays, certain times of year carry energy, and kind of what I always spiritually draft off of, energy as a way to propel us. You can start your new year on January 3rd or July 14th or August. Like any moment can be this moment that I'm going to start to create a shift. And so
great.
Yeah. If you go to meditate with Megan, see what
would maybe spell that for us. Yes.
Yeah. So just meditate, MEDITATE with WITH Megan, MEGAN, meditate
Megan.com.
.com. It'll all be there. Yeah.
You guys can find everything there, and our listeners may hear this in 2021, but just as valuably can do this 21-day meditation with you and dive into that and go into that self-care practice and see what emerges.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. If my last question for you is a question that I ask all of our guests. If you could send a message back in time to your 17-year-old self with one thing, what would it be?
I would tell her it's not that serious. It's not that serious. I am far from 17 at this point. And when I look back at how I navigated the world, even a young girl, forget that. I would tell my 4-year-old self, it's not that serious.
Right.
I used to take life and the things that were happening around me from moment to moment so seriously. I took myself so seriously. There was such a self-awareness, not in a good way, in self-consciousness.
Too much awareness. Yeah.
What was happening, how, and it's not that serious, We meditate and we do all of this work to create more lightness, to create more flexibility and malleability and attachment in a really healthy way. So, as much as even meditation, as much as I have such reverence for this practice and it's changed my life, we can talk about meditation in a really fun and entertaining way. And it's not that serious all the time, so I try to remind that not frequently, but I would for sure tell her that, because we would have saved a lot with that, knowing that.
Lots of stressing and, all of that teenage angst.
Right? I might still have a gallbladder. Shoot, I might still have a gallbladder if 17-year-old Megan didn't take it seriously.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much for being here with us, Megan.
Anytime.
It's been wonderful to have you here. Make sure you check out Megan's book, Don't Hate, Meditate. Go find her 21-day meditation challenge on meditatewithmegan.com and follow her on Instagram at Meg Monahan. And until next time, stay happily holistic.
Thanks for listening to Happily Holistic with me,
Amy Lee Mercree. You can find out more about the show on amyleemercree.com on the podcast page. Please stop by your favorite social platform and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear how you liked today's show and what topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Come find me on Instagram and Facebook at amyleemercree.com. If you would like to see what a medical intuitive session with me is all about, hop on over to the Work With Me page on amyleemercree.com. Until next time, stay happily holistic.